lecture for January 9th. And this is the Intro to Java class. All this stuff is online on D2L, our thing, but I also have it on, I tend to put most of the material actually online on GitHub and just link to it from here. Let me super quickly go over the syllabus. Has my name, my email. Try to use my Kennesaw email for class-related stuff, privacy and stuff like that. We should use the corporate email, but just in case, there's my Gmail account, and that one should stay forever, even after you and I leave Kennesaw. D2L has an email thing. Please don't use it because it annoys me to no end. The main reason is that I cannot reply to it as an email. I have to log into D2L. D2L, Desire to Learn, is the name of this thingy. This guy. It's the company name. I have no clue what there's probably some nice sounding corporate name for this thingy.
So sir, once we will enter in the Kennesaw.edu.
Yes, let's see. Kennesaw.edu. I just got to kennesaw.view.usd.edu, but you guys can go to kennesaw.edu and somewhere there should be there current students and D2L Brightspace. That's the official name. God. And they don't, oh, there it is. Which takes you to kennesaw.view.usd.edu. After the first time you go, then your browser will know. So if you just start typing Kennesaw, it should be the first thing on your browser. Whoa. Try to use normal email, not within our learning management system, and try to email to my Kennesaw email if you can. I have also my Skype and my cell phone. Hi. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the deal worked out and you opened it. Thank you. Don't call me on my cell phone if you can avoid it, but feel free to text. And Skype is also useful. I work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or something like that. So I will normally not answer that. But on the other hand, I tend to stay up late. And so if you see me at midnight on Skype, it's my fault. Feel free to contact me. My machine tends to log me onto Skype, so if I'm on my computer, I'm on Skype. I'm also on Google, or half the time I'm on Google. But texting me to my cell phone may make me respond faster, but it should be kind of the second or third thing, or when there's something urgent, right? I check my email 700 times a day. So. This course will teach you programming and will teach you Java. The main thing is to teach you programming. The main thing is to teach you how to think like a programmer. However, we need a programming language and we'll use Java. Because, well, why not? Objectives, you should know that stuff. You can go look at them later. The textbook is Think Java and is freely available there. The grading is kind of obvious. 90 to 100, you give you an A. 80 to 90, you get a B, and so on. Notice that it's closed. So A 90 gets you an A, and 89.9 gets you what?
B.
A B, right? We just need an arbitrary cutoff. We will have programming assignments that are worth 40%, and kind of you should have, there is almost no excuse for you not to get all the points on the programming assignments. The programming assignments are only to, they are really to push you to learn. That's the point. You can submit and resubmit until you get it right. So it's more time will be the only issue, right? And they're worth 40%. We'll see how you submit and how we can do the thing. Online discussions on D2L. I expect you to post stuff. Like there is already stuff there. 5%. We will have a midterm. Usually it's one midterm. I leave it like that because we can change it, but it's been working out to be just one. Kind of towards the middle of the term. That's worth 25%, and a final exam that's comprehensive, that's worth 30%.
So what is what? I mean, required online discussion. How does it work?
You come here, look at content, and look at the module. We have one module per weekish, and it's introduce yourself. You need to come here and introduce yourself. That's the discussion. Describe your programming experience. And there will be, stuff is just ask questions, but then there is some stuff that I'll be asking you throughout the course, kind of just participation. And I expect you to do more or less one per week. Depends on, right? Don't force yourself. If you don't have any questions, don't ask questions, right? But on the other hand, if somebody asks a question and you know the answer, right? Answer it, and that gives you participation points, right? It's not, don't force yourself, don't force it, but. And I got away from wherever I was. I think I am lying here, but what's going on and on about this? Let me make sure it's here. Oh, I didn't put it. I have a list of everything that is due. Oh, I didn't lie. Okay, I didn't lie in my syllabus. Life is good. Everything will be due Sunday midnight. So, with a grace period until the Wednesday after. So what will happen for the face-to-face class, right? We cover material on Monday and on Wednesday. The assignment is due Sunday, right? But if something happened, you can ask questions on Monday, right? And still resubmit the assignment. You may lose 10% if you do it late.
If we submit it on Monday, we will lose 10%.
You might. I don't promise to be mean. It usually depends on what's going on. But you can. It's like, well, if half the class didn't do it, then that may be something where I don't enforce that rule. Right? And especially if you submit something by Sunday, right? If you submit something, right, on Saturday or Sunday, then I probably won't enforce the rule. If you don't submit anything, then I might. Does that make sense? So I expect you to work, right? Do the work. But just in case, sometimes life happens. If life happens, then, well, life happens. Some things, academic misconduct, if you cheat, I will come down as hard as I can on you, right? That is just not acceptable. You can ask questions. You can ask questions online, right? If you're going to ask something, ask it over there, and that way you are not cheating, right? You're making it out in the open, even if the question ends up being kind of the wrong kinds of question to ask. It's okay, you're not cheating, right? If somebody's doing your assignments for you, or I catch you copying in a test or something like that, then yeah, you'll suffer. I try to go as hard as I can on people who cheat, right? That's not the point. It hurts you. It hurts everybody else because it devalues the value of our degrees. So, it's not going to happen. Don't cheat. If you have a question about, well, should asking this is cheating or not, right? Ask me beforehand, right? Kind of nobody should be seeing your stuff, right? You can ask everybody else about concepts, right? But not to make your assignment, right? So don't cheat and life will be good. For assignments, I give partial credit. My kind of rule, and you have the grader, you can run the exact same things that I run. That gives you a fairly good approximation of your grade. It's automated. You can run it, and it tells you how many points you got. It's not quite true, but this is a programming class. The least that I expect is that your program will compile. If not, I don't even look at it. But given that, it is okay. Yeah. So submit that stuff. Yeah, I kind of expect you to use sort of kind of English. It is perfectly okay if you don't, but I expect you to, right? I'm not gonna grade your things for grammar or anything like that. But I normally don't have makeups for tests or something like that, but if like happens, then we'll figure out. Just contact me if you. Sometimes it's like, okay, I know that I'm gonna be out for work on a given week, and that's the week of the test. Tell me before, and we'll figure something out. Same with if you have a religious holiday that happens to fall within something and impedes you from working or something like that. If you have a disability, come talk to me. Go bug first the right person, the addict, and then come talk to me and we'll figure it out. The schedule is subject to change, and there will be at least 2 proctored exams, a midterm and a final. You guys on the face-to-face class, I expect you to be here for those 2 things. For online, we do all sorts of stuff. That's basically the syllabus. Any questions?
What about the attendance policy?
I don't give a hoot. Sorry. I will sometimes call attendance because some law requires me to do stuff like that. It doesn't count. I don't care. If you find it useful, please come. Actually, if you are online and you want to come to some of the lectures because you can and you happen to be around it, please do so. We are in J132 from 6:30 to 7:45 Monday or Wednesday. If you find the better use of your time, don't come other than the exams. I hope that this is useful, but if it's not, it's perfectly okay. It's more if something happened, work sends you for travel or whatever, right? It's nice if you send me an email saying, hey, I'm not going to be here this Monday or this Wednesday, but I don't care. It's a good question, though. Other people do. I don't.
One more question.
Yes.
Can you submit assignment earlier than it's started?
Yes. And you are going to submit online, so it's all.
Any number of assignments?
Any number of assignments. You could go and do all your homework today and be done with the class. No. There's a bunch of other resources. When you have a chance, come look at them. Now,
Do you also have quiz?
sorry?
Quiz?
No. There's a midterm and that's it.
So midterm will be on optional, like alternate questions, alternate answers, multiple choice questions.
No. This is a programming class.
Just like programming.
You would write a program.
Sure.
It's a programming class. You're supposed to program. Programming is a contact sport. Programming is not about reading and watching videos. It's about doing it. And so, few things about succeeding in the class. It's planned so that even if you have no programming experience, and about half of you, right, said you have zero programming experience, you can succeed. That is the point. It may be harder for you, right? If you already have programming experience, some bits and pieces will be easier. There is, you may not realize how much experience you have in other things that look like programming. So hopefully, if you have used the command line, if you have written batch scripts or something like that, all of those things help. But time requirements, I think this is the most important thing. It is a 3 credit hour graduate class. The normal expectation for graduate courses would be you spend about 3 hours outside for every hour inside. So we spend 3 hours in lectures that you should be spending maybe 9 hours outside, right? This is actually a compressed class, so it may be a little bit more, especially if you have no programming experience. So I would recommend that you plan on spending about 15 hours per week on this class. You just got yourself a nice part-time job. If that is not what you're thinking, right? If that's not the stage you are in your life, if you also have a real full-time job and a life and a family, right? Please make sure that you schedule for that stuff, right? If not, you can drop the class up until Wednesday, maybe, without it ever happening. Doesn't appear in the transcript, nothing happened. Just, it takes time, right? And I know that you guys are adults and have other stuff, but this is kind of the time that it takes. Usually it's not that bad, and it's not that bad every week, but it can be. So schedule yourself for that, realistically. How can you succeed in the class? Put the time, right? Do it. Make sure that you have the time, right? One big trick is start early, because you will be able to submit your assignments, right? And so if you get stuck, many times with this, computers are really dumb. They are really fast, but they are really dumb. So you have to tell them exactly what you want. And sometimes an uppercase versus a lowercase letter makes something have a completely different meaning, right? And so sometimes the mistakes you'll be making, and you're going to be learning, so you're going to be making mistakes, right? That's what we do as programmers. The mistakes you're going to be making are a semicolon or a capital letter, right? But you can spend an hour or 6, right, if you get stuck on the exact same semicolon, right? So if you start early, let's you get stuck, and then submit what you have and ask questions, we can get you unstuck, and you don't have to spend 8 hours fighting with a semicolon. Does that make sense? So starting early is probably the best trick ever. So try to start as early as you can with this stuff. I will be creating your repo tonight for most of you. I will try. If you have already given, have you created your GitLab account? No.
Yes.
Yes, yay! We got one yes. If you haven't done so, when we finish this class, go create your GitLab account, log on to D2L, go start with that stuff, and I will probably end up creating your stuff tomorrow.
You mentioned name, username, or just name?
I need both. I need your username from GitLab and your username from KSU,
Okay.
because they may not be the same.
GitLab, what is that?
It is the best thing since sliced bread. Actually, I don't like sliced bread. It is the best thing since good, nice bread. Oh, I messed up, but that's okay. What it lets me do is look at all your code, right? You will be working in this. This is kind of a version control system, which many programmers use. You will be working on this kind of stuff. You'll be changing programming files that look like this. The really cool thing is that when what you submit for your assignment is a merge request or a pull request, and it shows me the exact changes. You see, there is this stuff in red, that's what it was, and this is what it is. This is what it was, this is what it is. So I can see exactly what you did. And also, I can write stuff and say, this is good or bad or whatever, right? And I can give you feedback, line by line, exactly where you got stuck, right? I can tell you you're doing this wrong, or right, you can do this better, or this is great, right?
Can you also run the program?
No, not from here. But it keeps track of all the changes that you did and when you did them, and it allows us to comment and do things like that. And also, I have the whole thing, so I can download it and run it on my computer. In fact, that's how I normally grade. I just download your code and run it on my computer.
And you mentioned needing a user and password.
You need a username. You need to come and create a username in here, right? And then you need to give me your KSU username and the username that you created here. If you're lucky, they are the same. But sometimes, right, you are John Smith, and so J Smith is already taken on GitLab, and so you have to be, I don't know, Bluebells 32, something like that.
So these are the assignments which we have to rectify, change, and then submit to
Yes.
on the GitLab.
Well, you do them on your computer and then you submit the stuff to GitLab. We'll show it in a sec. Quotations permit. But you need to create these accounts so that you can start working on this stuff.
On the GitLab.
Your emails weren't working this morning, so I couldn't send you stuff. But create this thing.
The assignment needs to be submitted to D2L, right?
No, the assignments will be submitted through this. We don't really use D2L for assignments because their assignment stuff is more for like English where you type stuff. We have programming tools. We are programmers. We have automated tools that let us do this stuff. D2L is good, it's just not for us.
What is the difference between GitLab and GitHub?
There are different companies that do the same thing. GitHub is kind of the first one. Okay, a little bit of history that has not much to do with the class, but how do you track versions of documents? Have you worked on a document where you have to keep working on the same thing for a while? Yes? Like a big Word document or a big Excel spreadsheet. right? What do you do? How do you track versions? When you make a change, how do you track it?
We just note down the version, we save a different file.
Yes, you save it, right? And now it was big spreadsheet. Now it's big spreadsheet Jan9, right? And the next time you save it is big spreadsheet Feb22, right? And then you get utterly lost and you do stuff, especially if you are emailing the documents from each other, right? Somebody changes the wrong thing, right? Has that happened to you guys? As programmers, we deal with text. And so programmers started figuring out this is horrible. We don't want to do this. So they invented version control systems. You tell the system, here's a new version, right? And that thing knows the date, because it's a computer, it knows the date, right? And it can actually go look at what changed and record only the changes, right? And it knows your account and things like that. So it records stuff like this. This guy changed this file at this time, right? So you can work on a big team and keep track of versions you can change, or you can just use the latest version. Does that make sense? Is that cool? We used to have, and there are many different version control systems or revision control systems. About 5 years ago, the Linux kernel was using one that I can't recall. And they were having issues with licensing. So Linus Torvalds, who is Superman in programming, sat on a weekend and wrote a different one called Git. It's just a different version control system. And made it open source. It was really cool in many ways. So a lot of people started using it. Then a company called GitHub came up with this idea of, oh, I will give you Git. And you have a server where the code is stored, so I will give you a server for you. And the server is free, and I have a nice interface. What they did is make it's free for public repos, so all your code is open for everybody. If you want private repositories, then you pay money. And they make obscene amounts of money. Actually, probably they don't, but they make some money.
I mean, the way in which they describe learn Git. So the word Git is
Git is the version control system. You can use it with many different servers.
okay.
GitHub.com is one such family of servers, is one such server with an online interface.
So it means that Git is a term actually.
Git is a term, yes. And it stands for something. I have no clue what it stands for. You can probably go find it. But GitHub was the original one. I have a GitHub account with oodles of stuff. I basically put everything in the cloud. Everything I make, I put it there. However, these things are public. It works really well for my slides and things like that, right? It doesn't work for your assignments, because I don't want your assignment to be public, because then everybody else in the class could feel tempted to copy your assignment, right? There is another company called Bitbucket that provides code repositories. It actually has private repos, but it had some issues. So GitLab is another one that gives me the ability to have private repos. So that's why we use GitLab. It's a competitor of GitHub, maybe. The same thing, but with a different name, slightly different capabilities, slightly different UI, but for the most part, the same thing. You will find that there's a bunch of things that are kind of the same thing. I am not terribly partisan in any of these things. Use whichever. GitLab works for us, hopefully. That's why I'm using it. I'm hoping that this is the first semester that I'm using GitLab. Before I used Bitbucket, but it sucks in certain ways. Hopefully, one of the things that you will get out of this class is getting used to putting your stuff on a code repository. GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, whatever, right? You should do this. Why? We are programmers, right? You're going to be programmers, right? You're going to be dealing with this kind of stuff. We deal with text. They're tiny files, right? If you do this, you have it backed up. It's on a different computer, right? It's on somebody else's server, right? You have all the versions. And it should be kind of automatic. If you don't put your code on GitHub, you should itch. That's the idea. And you should do this for every one of your assignments, right? Every one of your classes. Something like GitLab gives you private repos, so you can do it and not be cheating. And eventually, when you start doing your own stuff, right, it allows you to build a portfolio of stuff, right? So when somebody goes here, they see all the stuff that I do. They see that I have done Android, that I do Java, of course, C++, Python, whatever I do, right? And eventually you can use this as part of your resume, right? Here's my GitHub, or even sometimes you get hits from people who look at your GitHub and say, hey, you want to work on this kind of stuff.
So you have made your profile, in the GitHub.
Yes. GitHub tends to be the default one for public stuff. GitLab allows you to do public and private, so you can use it the same way. I still use GitHub. In fact, all of the slides and stuff are on GitHub. Because it makes my life easier. I can keep the versions and it's publicly available on the web. I don't have to keep a server. So when you create your GitLab thing, I will give you that repo for you, and so you can start. Hopefully you send it tonight and I'll do it tomorrow night. So start early. Don't fall behind, right? If you see that you're falling behind, ask for help. The concepts kind of build on each other. So if you start falling behind, you're not going to get the next stuff, right? So don't fall behind. Ask. Correct. You're adults. I'm assuming you're adults. I'm assuming you can monitor your learning. You know when you're learning. You know when you're not learning. And you can ask for help. You're adults. I'm going to treat you like adults. I will do everything in my power to help you learn, but you have to start. Does that make sense? I will, normally, I'll answer your emails. We can do Skype and share screens and fix whatever problem you have whenever we can. But you have to ask. I will not treat you like a kid anymore. You're not kids anymore. There is a couple of things. Embrace the technology. You will be using technology that is different, right? Chances are that you will be using stuff that you haven't used. Chances are that you haven't used Git before, right? Chances are that you haven't used Eclipse or IntelliJ or something like that, right? I will not teach you a lot about Git or IntelliJ or Eclipse or anything like that, right? I'll be teaching you about programming and Java, but on your own, you should try to learn as much as you can, right? And be curious and play with this stuff, right? It is incredibly fun and incredibly rewarding when you play and figure things out on your own. But I do give you what are called unit tests. So for every tiny piece of your code, right, I will be asking you, for the most part, to do small pieces. And for every piece, there's a bunch of unit tests that verify that you did it right. So the normal thing is run your tests, they are wrong, fix something, run test again, and see what got fixed, right, and what's still wrong. Keep using that, right? Some people try to say, oh, this is an easy assignment, or I don't have my computer with me, right? Let me just go and type stuff, right? I haven't installed the compiler. Let me type stuff in Word and see if it works. It doesn't work. Don't even try it, right? And don't even try, if you try to solve everything at once, right? And you make a mistake, you're gonna keep making that mistake in every other piece of code, right? And then when you run it, you have 500 errors and you don't know what happened. If you do this, you make one line. If something broke, it is that line. Nothing else could have been, right? So do small steps. Keep doing unit tests over and over. We will be doing code reviews, right? You send stuff on GitLab, and I can make comments and things like that. Do it, right? You start. You do two things, right? Check them in, commit, send a pull request, right? If you get stuck, commit, send a pull request, right? Do it kind of, it should be automatic, do it all the time. Use the assignments wisely. A very common mistake is for people to get too much help with the assignments, right? I am not watching behind your shoulder, right? When you do the assignments. It is fairly tempting to ask somebody else. If you work as a tester, you have developers next to you, right? Sometimes people end up having too much help for the assignments, and then you don't learn, and then I kill you on the midterm. It doesn't help, right? You fall behind, you don't learn, and you're not going to succeed in the class, right? Put the effort, suffer. Sometimes it sucks, but this is what makes this stuff so rewarding. You do something, you try it, it doesn't work, it sucks, you fight with it, you bang your head on the wall over and over. After an hour, it works, and then you are like, woohoo, I got it, right? That's what keeps us going. Don't be afraid of failure. We are programmers. That's what we do. We make mistakes every day. We just fix them eventually. Hopefully before the code goes into production. But any questions about this stuff? Start early, send code reviews as early as you can, right? Don't fall behind. And this will be good. So now, let's start talking a little bit about variables and programmings and stuff. By the way, I tried to make videos for some of this stuff, and I have videos and notes. If you have a chance, go through this and set up your stuff and go through this assignment 0. After you create your GitLab account, I send you the email with that stuff, then do this one and get ahead. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the super basics of programming. You program in a programming language, which looks something like English, right? But it's a very specific English. Computers don't understand Java or C or Lisp or whatever you use, right? So you need some program that translates that into whatever the computer understands. Computer understands machine language, so you need a compiler which translates the program into machine language. Actually, in the Java case, translates the program into machine language for a virtual machine, the JVM. But we will be using the Java programming language, and Java uses a virtual machine. Some other languages do now. You don't really compile to an executable, you compile to something that you still need the VM to execute. That allows us to just write the VM for every computer architecture and then run your programs anywhere. Sort of, kind of, almost. Now, your program is a bunch of text. What do you use to edit text? A text editor. What's an example of a text editor?
Right.
Notepad. What else? Good. Nobody said Word. Good. Word is not a text editor. It's an abomination. No. Word is a word processor. It does fancy stuff, right? It produces pretty documents. It doesn't produce text. Word will autocorrect your stuff, right? And fix your grammar mistakes. In this thing, right? A quote like this is not the same as a quote like this. And Word will correct this stuff to make it look pretty, right? Don't ever, ever, ever use something like Word to edit programming text. Word is for producing pretty pictures, not for editing text, right? Notepad is sort of kind of a text editor. It's horrible, but it's sort of a text editor. I tend to use Visual Studio Code as my default text editor. On Windows, Notepad++ is fairly decent. I use Linux, Windows, and Macs, so I need something that's cross-platform, and Visual Studio Code is kind of, right now, is my default simple text editor. You may or may not want to download something like that, but the Java compiler is called Java-C. You need to install it on your machine eventually, as in tonight. Your Java files will have a .java extension. You would use a command like javac and whatever to compile it, and then Java to execute it. There are a couple of other things you can do. A couple of nice sites. Java REPL. REPL stands for read, eval, print, loop. It's something that reads whatever you type, evaluates it, and prints it, and then goes read again. It's almost an interpreter for Java. You can type Java code, and it will do it immediately, so you can see. So you can do stuff like int a equals 3, and then a plus 3. What should this print? 6, right? And it prints it. Can you guys read this stuff? Cool. This means that for very simple stuff, for the first couple of weeks of the class, right, you don't even need the compiler. You should install compilers and stuff on your machine. That's the point. You're going to become a programmer. You're going to be doing this forever, right? So you want to make sure that you install it. But if you are at work and you have 20 minutes without nothing to do, and you don't have your computer with you, you can come to Java REPL and play with Java, right? A similar thing is Coding Bad, which has simple exercises that you can solve on the web. So it's kind of when you don't have your computer with you, you can do this kind of stuff. You need oodles and oodles and oodles of practice. Get as much practice as you want. If you have your computer, practice on your computer. If you don't, practice on this stuff. Right? You want to be practicing as much as you can. That said, if you do the same thing over and over, you start getting better tools, right? If I want to edit a little piece of text here and there, right, then I get a text editor and edit text. If I am gonna be programming 8 hours a day, then I want a tool for programming, right? And some people use VI and Linux as their tool for programming. Unix is a tool for programming, but a lot of people prefer to use an IDE, an integrated development environment. It's a much more complicated thing than a text editor, but it will understand that my program is not just one file, but it's 700 files put in different folders and things like that. And it will understand that it gets compiled, so I can just click a button and it compiles and does all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? we are very, very lucky in the Java world. There's a bunch of free IDEs available. There is Eclipse, NetBeans, and IntelliJ IDEA. There are some for teaching, like Dr. Java and JGrasp. I don't use them because you're adults. So treat you like adults. They are not terribly. They are very different. They are all three of these are very good. Which one you prefer is more of a matter of preference. I will use Eclipse and IntelliJ. All three of them are available for free. You can install either one of those and use either one of those. I normally end up messing up with my machine, and so switching from one to the other when I mess up one. Now, when you program, when your program becomes big, you want more than one file, so you end up with 20 or 50 or hundreds of different files, right? And so you want to control which files get compiled and which ones don't and things like that. The original Unix tool for doing that was called make. And so every old fart like me calls this thing make, regardless, right? Now there is many other systems that are like make. We will be using Gradle because there is a bunch of good systems for Java. There is Ant, Maven, Gradle, now probably Bazel. I like Gradle, so that's what we're using. For no particular reason. You won't need to learn Gradle a lot, just you'll be using it. Just so you know that it exists. And we will be using Git for version control. And we'll be using GitLab. Oops. Whenever you see Bitbucket, I mean GitLab. I'll change it, politicians promise. If I don't change it, send me a pull request. When you have a chance, go install the JDK, go install a Git thing, go install Eclipse, and GitLab, not Bitbucket. Any questions? Cool. Let me, in the last 10 minutes or so, pollute your brain with variables and stuff. And we have videos here for using GitLab and that kind of stuff. So I will leave it like that. We'll talk it next class after you have created the account and tried it. Rather than that, let me talk a little bit about variables and operators. In programming, one of the main concepts is the idea of a variable. We want places to stick values, right? And then names so we can refer to those values. Those are called variables, right? A variable in Java has three things: a name, a type, and a value. Java is a strongly typed language, so we specify this variable can contain these kinds of things, and it will not contain other things. So if we say this is a string, then it can contain letters, right? If we say it's an int, then it can only contain integers, whole numbers. If we say it's a double, then it can contain floating points things, 3.5, right? If it's a string, it can contain 3, but 3 as a string, right? The character tree, the letter tree, as opposed to the number tree, which are different. Does that make sense? So we declare variables, and I'll be using Java REPL. It's almost like Java, right? Here we declared a variable called A, and we gave it the variable, the value 3. No. How can I make this bigger? Can you see it? You can? Okay, now we'll try. We can declare another variable, int b. Oops, session terminated. Okay, a equals 3. So now I have a variable, right? I declared it is of type int. Its name is a and its value is 3, right? It is almost like variables in math with one big distinction. I can do this. A equals 5. Any mathematician should be horrified at this, right? I just told you that it was 3. You cannot make it 5. Well, in programming, I can. A variable is just a box where I can stick stuff, right? So now what's the value of A? 5. What's the good thing about it? I can change it. Magic. What's the bad thing about it? It changes. I need to keep track of time, right? A was 3, now it's 5, right? And so things don't have, so when I print a plus 1, print 6, if I do a equals 3, then when I print a plus 1, what's the value now? 4. It changes with time. You need to keep track of the sequence and what just happened, right? And in a way, we'll see ways of dealing with complexity, but you need to keep track of everything that has happened in your program, right? Life just got a lot harder, but a lot more fun. You can do magic. Isn't that cool? So we have variables. Some things we can do, we can assign, right? We have done that. We can use more complicated expressions, right? You have the assignment, and then on the right-hand side of the assignment, you can do whatever the heck you want, right? Can be a complicated expression, right? So we can do, let's do int b equals 5. Now I have a, which is 3, and b, which is 5, so it can do a equals b plus a. What does this do?
It will change the value of it.
And now it is 8, right? 3 plus 5. And I can do a equals 3 plus 4 times 2. What's a gonna be?
Yes, it will be new value of
The math teacher.
new value.
11, right? Why? Because the multiplication gets done first, right? Order of operations, PEMDAS, and that kind of stuff, right? So it should be 11, right? Kind of the usual operators work. The star is instead of multiplication because an X is a letter. So we use star. The usual stuff works. Do you remember the precedence of all the operators? Sometimes, right? What happens if you don't? What do you do? Write parentheses. It is perfectly okay to use parentheses. And if you met the other guy, then just write the other parentheses. This is fun, but you have to be super careful, right? If you forget the parentheses, then it's all wrong, right? So you have to be very careful when you're doing this stuff, kind of like in math, right? Sequence is important, right? We can change. We can also, and I tend to do this a lot, declare and initialize at the same time. In Java, but not in Java REPL, you can do it like this. What did this do? This statement. How many variables did I declare? 3 of them, right? X, Y, and Z. What's the value of X? What's the value of Y? I don't know. I think in Java it's always 0, but what's the value of Z? 11, right? Because X is 10, and I just did before. If I swap it, then I can't do it, right? They get done kind of in order. Does that make sense? Cool. What can I use for variable names, right? Syntactically, I can use letters, digits, a dollar sign, and an underscore. And you cannot start with a digit because Java will get confused whether you meant a number or a letter, right? You can't start with a dollar sign, and you can't start with an underscore or have them in the middle. Variable naming is very important, right? If I name something A, does that help you? Probably not. You don't remember what the heck it was. If I name something age, that may be better, right? Putting constant tag may be enough. If I name something age of the child, then that may be a lot more useful, right? You have this balance of long variables versus you want short variables, but you want stuff that describes exactly what it is. So naming is an art and a science. Using good, meaningful names will help you when you program, right? Programming is kind of communicating among people and only incidentally with the computer, right? The point is for the next person who reads that code to be able to understand what you did. The next person who reads that code may be you the next day, right? Maybe you on a Monday morning, or you on a Friday afternoon where you're trying to get out of work, right? So use good variable names. In Java, there is a strong convention to start variables with a lowercase letter and use capitalization to separate words. So we use stuff like gear ratio or number of size. Does that make sense? Different languages have different conventions. Some others use underscores and things like that. This is this kind of standard in Java. The compiler will not complain if you name them something else, right? But basic integer operators. We have the standard math operators. We have plus and minus. We have unary minus, right? Star is multiplication. Slash is integer division. Go back to grammar school. Go back to elementary school. What is 1 divided by 2?
1 over 2.
What did you do in grammar school? 0. Right? It's like 4th grade. In 1st grade, you say, you cannot do that, right? Or I don't even know what division is. But it's something like 4th grade, right? It's like, oh, it doesn't, right? So it's 0. What's 3 over 2? 1, right? What's 6 over 4? 1, right? Does that make sense? We use the percent sign for the remainder. Remainder, right? What's 3% 2? 3 divided by 2 is 1 with a remainder of 1. So 3% 2 is 1. So if we do 6% 4, what's the remainder? 2, right? Does this make sense? This is terribly confusing because half the time you meant the other division. Modulo is not confusing. Integer division versus floating point division is confusing. When you're doing ints, it means integer division. If you have floats, then it means floats, or doubles, or decimals. Mostly because I use it a lot, there is shorthand operators. Instead of writing stuff like a equals a plus 5, you can write a plus equals 5. It's just shorthand for that other guy. And you can do it with every other guy. So b times equals 3 is b equals b times 3, sorry. Oh, make me fix my mistakes. B plus plus actually means b equals b plus 1. and b minus minus means b equals b minus 1. If these shorthand operators are confusing, what do you do?
Don't use them.
Don't use them, write it out in full, right? It's all good. Cool. Questions? Answers? No? Then I guess I will see you on Wednesday, 7:45. Perfect timing. Let me stop this thing.